This morning, Sony Pictures dropped the trailer to their latest comic book movie that's supposed to be kind of a spin-off to the whole Spider-Man thing, since Spider-Man and his Rogues Gallery is really much the only thing that they actually own the rights to, so they need to make comic book movies because everyone's doing that, so this is what they're doing. So far, we haven't really seen good results from them. Madam Web came out earlier this year, and that was a huge box office bomb, as well as Morbius in past years. Venom, the third movie to that, is going to be coming out pretty soon, and so far that's the only one that's actually been profitable for them, but maybe they actually do have something that they're working behind the scenes, which is why they're continuing to make these movies, because it looks like even though their movies aren't necessarily the most well received, I think they're doing it in a manner that is still profitable for the studio, even if they're not making their money at the box office. But I will get more on that in a little bit. First, let's look at this article from Variety that's talking about the latest trailer for Kraven. Kraven the Hunter, a new trailer. Aaron Taylor Johnson is out for blood in Sony's R-rated Marvel villain origin story. Aaron Taylor Johnson shows no mercy in a new trailer for Sony and Marvel's Kraven the Hunter, which tells the origin story of the Spider-Man villain. The first new footage released from the trailer in over a year sees Taylor Johnson's Kraven kicking ass and taking names in various gruesome ways, including stabbing his adversaries in the neck, catching them in bear traps, and pushing them through windows. And from watching the trailer, you can definitely see that it is violent and it's going to be an R-rated movie, because they made sure to point out that there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of violence and this sort of thing. And I think Sony learned from what they did with Morbius, because that movie it's about a vampire and they tried to sanitize a lot of the blood in order to maintain a PG-13 rating, and a lot of people are rightly criticizing it. So I think Sony kind of learned from that mistake and are like, okay, if we're going to make a movie, if it actually lends itself to being a little bit more violent, then maybe we'll embrace the R rating. Like, you can't bring in as many people with that because a lot of kids can't buy tickets to R-rated movies by themselves. But yet at the same time, people have seen, especially recently with Deadpool and Wolverine, if the movie is actually true to the source material and people enjoy it, well, then it'll still be successful, even if you are kind of like closing off who can actually go and watch the movie. Kraven the Hunter is the latest installment in Sony's universe of Marvel characters, which includes Spidey spin-offs Venom, Morbius, and Madam Web. After its release date was moved several times, Kraven the Hunter is set to premiere in theaters on December 13th from Columbia Pictures, a Sony company. And I got the trailer pulled up right here, and you can see from the like to dislike ratio, it's actually pretty well received amongst audiences. I got some clips I want to show you. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. You can check it out yourself, but just to kind of give you an idea about the level of violence that's going to be in this movie.
Каждой сказки есть правда.
Yeah, really have to emphasize the blood on that one. Let me see what else. Anything else? What was that?
And behold,
Yeah, they want people to know that this is an R-rated movie, like I was saying. And I think this is what people are kind of responding to, because this doesn't look like it's anything necessarily too crazy or whatever. It's just like, okay, it's just kind of a fun action movie. Whether it's actually going to be successful or not remains to be seen. Like I was saying before, when it comes to a lot of these Spider-Man spin-off type characters that Sony's been doing, they've been met with pretty bad results for them. I mean, like I said, Madam Web, $80 million budget. It made just over $100 million worldwide. I think that was their worst one. $75 million budget for Morbius, $162 million it made. The Venom ones are really the only ones that have been successful. I think this movie, I don't know what the actual budget is. I think it was around like this 110 range or something like that. I know it was a little bit more than Madam Web, but I've also read that it was less than 120. So maybe around like 110, 115. Let's just say around that range for this movie. Now, is it going to be successful at the box office? Who knows? It's a December release, so we'll see if people are actually inclined to go see it in December, because the R rating may actually hurt it as a result of all that, because in December, the movies that people go see are either like family movies or something you can take the whole family to, like around Christmas time, or they're the award movies. This is definitely not going to be one of those award movies. So is it one that you could take the whole family to? I'm not so sure about it. We have seen other movies that didn't do or that weren't well received still make enough for this movie to turn profitable, because this movie probably needs to make around $400 million to be profitable. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, that made around that much, and that was another comic book movie with a December release, but that had a lot more baggage surrounding like Amber Heard and other stuff like that. And it was also a PG-13 movie. This one, it's also built around a less known character to general audiences. So I don't think it's going to make that much, but does Sony actually need it to make $400 million at the box office in order for it to be profitable? And strangely enough, they don't really need to. Unlike Marvel or anything like that, which it's owned by Disney, they own their own streaming service. When Marvel releases a movie theatrically, they pretty much need to make their money at the box office, because if they're going to put it onto Disney Plus, their streaming service, they're not necessarily even making more money by doing that, because you're not they'll say they're selling the rights to their own movie to themselves in order to put it on their streaming service, but Disney as a company isn't making any money off that. Meanwhile, Sony has an exclusive deal with Netflix where they actually put their movies onto Netflix afterwards. And that's a pretty lucrative one for the company, because Sony doesn't have their own streaming service. So that's why they license it out and they make a lot of money that way. Kind of like back in the day when movies would come out in theaters, they didn't make all their money at the box office. So, I mean, some of them would, but they didn't have to. They would actually anticipate like, okay, we're going to make so much at the box office. Then so much through home video sales, so much for TV licensing and other things like that. So there was other revenue streams besides just the box office. When it comes to Marvel movies, yeah, they still got home video sales and things like that, but a lot of the licensing one is for the streaming service and they're not making any money off that. Meanwhile, Sony is making money from that path. So for this to actually be profitable for them, and I'm talking for Kraven, they probably need to make, I don't know, maybe around $300 million, or probably even less than that, maybe $200 million in order for Sony to feel that it's justified. Because just going back to the numbers here, we can see things like Madam Web, Morbius, those didn't make their money at the box office, but they were still considered successful to Sony. Like Madam Web, for instance, that was one of the top most streamed movies when it came out on Netflix. So I don't know, maybe I would say the infamy surrounding it was probably acting as marketing for it, because people were like, I'm not going to pay to watch it in theaters. But then when it comes out on Netflix, they're just browsing through it and they see Madam Web on there, like, well, maybe I'll check it out, just see how bad it really is. And if Kraven the Hunter is one of those movies that just bombs at the box office, and that could probably potentially help it on Netflix, or it's just going to lose so much the box office that no licensing will actually help it. But I think Sony understands that you can't just own your own streaming service. They understand, like, something that I've been saying, and I know a lot of other people have been saying, this isn't like it's my idea, that if studios want to be profitable, they can't just expect to be a one-stop shop. They can't own their own streaming services. I think a lot of these companies need to go back to how it was, where you got studios producing movies and then you have places like Netflix or whatever, which are the streaming sites. Because with all these different companies trying to have a bigger piece of the pie, they were just fighting against each other, and it was more profitable for everyone in the long run if Netflix or Hulu were just the streaming places and everyone else was the ones producing the content. And if we went back to that, then I think a lot of these other studios will be better off, kind of like how Sony is lately. But until then, we're going to see other studios lose money. But it looks like Sony, I think, is going to be okay, even if this movie doesn't do too well at the box office. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you plan on seeing Kraven the Hunter, or do you just not really care? Or are you going to actually wait for it to come out on Netflix? Comment below and let me know. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share the video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.